Alrighty. What is this? My fifth stream that I've done. Welcome to part 5 of my stream that is titled I'm Ready for a New Day. And I believe I'm going to do one more stream after this. But here we go. Let's do this. This is an old voice recording from a month ago. And it is called My Many Gripes with Wrestling and Her Writing. Mostly the writing. I've already talked about, you know, the fans and everything, the positives and the negatives. So let's go ahead and do this, shall we? Hope you all enjoy it. And I'm going to go eat. Howdy, everyone. This is Wilkins, your 30-plus-year-old gynosexual rare guest star poem that you need in your life or not. And I just want to do a quickie as I talk about the many, many issues that I've noticed with pro wrestling. Now, again, this is just speculation. It's probably not even true, but I do have a right to speak. And I need to wrap this up because, I am cooking food and I don't want it to burn. So let's just go ahead and get this on down the road, reinventors. Number one of the things that I've noticed as the biggest issue with pro wrestling is that it copies off of one another instead of just, you know, forming new ideas. Nothing's more irritating when I, watch a pro wrestling show and I see wrestlers doing, special moves and then constantly kicking out of them. You know what I mean? It's like certain moves you shouldn't be able to kick out of. Like IRL speaking, if you get kicked in the back of the head, Muay Thai style, you may get lucky, may be able to kick out of that one time, but truth be told, you're out. You are out cold. And that's, the thing that I just don't understand. See, when I was a teenager, I thought, oh, that's so cool. They constantly keep kicking out of moves, but it's just now, when you get older, you're just like, this is silly. Now, I understand that certain moves eventually that are once special turn into be signatures, but the best way to resolve that is to come up with, certain moves. But I'm sick and tired of wrestlers. Stunner, rock bottom. No, those are sacred moves. Once someone does that move, that's it. Unless the legend themselves granted you full permission and gave you their blessing to use that move, don't do it. You know, the cutter, moves that used to, be an instant 3 count. The power bomb. The power bomb is powerful, but doesn't feel like anything. Now the last ride, that's a great move. But you get what I'm saying? Certain moves people should not kick out of. Unless that wrestler, is known for kicking out of that. So I think the best way to resolve this is that we have to add some realism, you know? If someone does a super death defying move on you, take the pin or go for the ropes. Now, submissions, fine. You can break out of those. That's perfectly fine. But it's just the special moves that I just don't get. Like, moves that were once prized by other legends are now just regular moves, like the camel clutch and whatnot. The tombstone. 1, 2, kicked out the tombstone. Like, why are we using a tombstone? And listen, if we got to use those moves, then use them towards the end of a match, right? Now, if the legends themselves say they don't care, then fine. But I just find that oddly weird. Seth Rollins does the pedigree. 1, 2, someone kicks out. Now, I get it. Technically speaking, I guess the reason why this is a thing is, well, pro wrestlers have kicked out these moves before. But it just doesn't make any sense. That's like if someone kicked out of the Crossroads. Now, unless you're someone like big name like Cena or The Rock or, like Kevin Owens or just anyone in the main roster, then that makes sense. But if someone like me, let's just say there was an open challenge to someone like me, and I was training everything, I put on this great, debut 10-minute match, Cody Rhodes hits me with the crossroads, and then I kick out of it twice. Like, no. Some things you just don't do. You just don't do that. That's like if I kicked out of Macho Man's elbow drop. The only time it's acceptable to kick out of certain special moves is if it's between the two big stars, because they're trying to go up against one another, or if it's like an unsanctioned match, then that's fine. But in a regular match where everyone's just throwing these moves around, it doesn't make any sense. I don't know. I just found that to be pretty odd. Number two, and this is still a problem. Yes, Triple H. I know a lot of people they have their issues with him, but this is a much older, wiser, and less arrogant and egotistical Triple H. Even with the fact that certain moves, whatnot, no longer banned, certain rules are, no longer a thing anymore. You can now literally freely say TNA, ROH, New Japan Pro Wrestling. It's a great feeling. I've been wanting this for years, actually for decades. But the one thing I don't fully understand, right, and just hear me out when I say this, is that why is it that certain superstars are not getting the push they deserve? Like, for example, when Randy Orton faced Joe Hendry, Randy Orton should have took that L and helped Joe Hendry be elevated. In my opinion, if I was Randy Orton and I'm someone that's already established, that's already a multi-time champion, I would have took that L, but at least made it convincing. To at least, I don't know, maybe build up a potential future feud if possible. I mean, Randy's a face. So why not? It's not gonna. That's what I'm saying. It's not like if Randy took the L, or lost, it would have made it a little weak. If anything, it would have showed how much he has grown, throughout the years. Now, young Randy Orton would not have done that. Young Randy Orton would be like, "Nah, I'm not doing that." But this is an older, wiser Randy Orton with kids and close to retirement. Why didn't he let Joe Hendry win? He comes out there, right? Joe Hendry, of course, gives it his all. And for what I've heard, he did a good job, presenting himself and trying to, face Randy Orton. But the match ended in 3 minutes. And I'm sorry, but that leaves a sour taste in my mouth. So what do? Now they have Joe Hendry go up against Obafemi. If it didn't work with Moose, what in the world do you think is going to happen to Joe Hendry? He's going to get destroyed. They're not gonna drop the belt to Joe Hendry. They're gonna feed him to Obafemi. So this is what I don't get about certain superstars that are obviously, got the mic skills and are ready to go. Why is it that they're not at least given a chance? Now, I know certain wrestlers have been given a chance, been champion, whatnot. They experimented with this and they saw the ratings tank. They're like, well, this is why we don't do it. Well, maybe it's because you don't stick to what you're going to do. And maybe, in my humble opinion, that's why it happens. Because you're not sticking to your plan. One thing that I've always respected about Vince and Kenny McMahon, person and character, despite what he's done, shame on him and whatnot, he stuck to the plan. Whether people liked it or not, he stuck to the plan. He knew that people were going to boo Cena and Roman, but he stuck to the plan. And now Cena and Roman are some of the biggest stars we've ever seen. If the plan is to keep this person champion, keep him champion. If they boo, then it's up to the wrestler if they want to turn face or heel, just as long as it sticks with the plan. Stay true to the plan. But at the same time, don't be afraid to make sure that each person, right? Certain stars end up becoming champion or end up becoming at least Intercontinental United States or tag champion, because what's going to happen is if you don't do that, that wrestler is going to be demotivated. They're going to hate their job and they're going to quit and go somewhere else where they will get, a championship. And this is with any promotion, but WWE is the worst offender. Not just WWE, but TNA is the worst offender. Now, TNA's gotten better with this, But TNA is known for their booking mistakes. Worse than WCW, worse than WWE. They are a parody of WWE. But I will give TNA this. They have their shining moments. Heck, there's like hours and hours of their shining moments. Even WWE is finally acknowledging Impact Wrestling, which is great. I love that. It's just, oh my goodness, man. Let people have a chance. Like, for example, and my broski's finally understanding this. He's listening to me. He's not just throwing in all these random matches and whatnot. He's working with me, respecting what I say. He always does, but I mean, he's doing it a lot more clear. And I don't know if it's the talk they had with his, his family or what, but he's listening to me. He's calming down when I tell him to calm down. And we're able to put on some really good shows. I have endless ideas for a lot of things. So if anybody like hires me in like the game industry or whatnot, just know that I'm somebody that's gonna throw a bunch of ideas at you that's gonna blow your mind. I still have them. I just need help with like how characters are kind of like designed because sometimes I can go overboard with the design. But other than that, when it comes to ideas and storytelling stuff, I got you. So for the role plays, right, that I do, my promise is that every single wrestler, the ones that we know that are deserving of it, is at least given a shot or a chance to be a champion. Like in a role play, I want to see like Austin Fury. I want to see, you know, Penta. I want to see certain wrestlers not only win that championship, but earn it. Build their characters where they are so over with the crowd. I love indie wrestling for this one reason that almost everyone can be over with the crowd because they work hard and they have a character that signifies who they are. One of the issues back in the day was these wrestlers did not have characters. They were just athletic. That was an issue. Now that's changed. Rhea Ripley has a character. Becky Lynch has a character. Mercedes Mons, well, she always had a character, but it's now more refined. And they're embracing Botchamania. They're embracing the culture. They're embracing this. And it's beautiful. And I want to see more of this. But the fact of the matter is that certain wrestlers are not getting the chance that they're given. It scares me because here's why it scares me. It scares me for this one reason. Look at how many wrestlers have died recently. Right? So you got all these wrestlers who died. And that's obviously, terrible. And a lot of these wrestlers who passed away were not given a chance at a WWE championship, were not given a chance at a cruiserweight championship, were not given a chance at a tag championship, and that's not good. That's why, certain wrestlers they go to other promotions to have that moment. Sometimes you got to sacrifice a few of your fans just to make sure that that person has their last hurrah before they croak. I'm telling you, man, because life is unpredictable. You just don't know. And that's why when I was young, I would always be angry. Like, well, why did this person lose? Or why did this person win? Because I know it's just going to result in them being frustrated. There's only so long when someone can say, oh, it's just part of the plan. They're going to get tired and they're going to quit. And that's what's happened. That's why we have TNA. That's why we have MLW. That's why we have all these promotions. Because the WWE refuses to push certain people. And this is a mistake that they have been making even now. Now it's either they're pushing too many people or they're pushing a certain person who is just not ready. But I think their fear is, well, who's the big star? It's funny to me how indie wrestlers, like their promotions, they already know who their big stars are. The Juggalo Championship Wrestling, NWA, TNA, New Japan Pro Wrestling. I think I already said that twice. AAA Wrestling, who's now, pretty much acquired by WWE. uh, ROH, they have their top stars, and they stuck to those top stars. But here's the thing: they're not selfish. They have their main guys, but they know when to shift it to someone else, and that person still makes that company look good. WWE still sticks to the same old wrestler. That's why you got fans talking about, oh, I remember the wrestlers like Hulk Hogan, Macho Man, The Rock, Stone. That's why they keep saying that. Because WWE has never given those other wrestlers who obviously have characters, who obviously have talent that we've seen in other indie promotions, the chance to shine. Like Funaki, I remember when I was a kid, I used to say, man, that wrestler whack. My middle brother, shut me down and told me, watch your mouth. He's a good wrestler. So I started looking up who Funaki was. And I was like, wow, he is good. So why does he look like a goof in WWE? Same with Tajiri. Just doesn't make any sense. So WWE is doing better. TNA Impact is doing better, but they gotta stop playing these games. Because I think these numerous deaths is what's waking these companies up. It's waking them up, and I can tell. I know I said some things in my TikTok stream that lasted for 12 hours because I know I passed out after the 10th hour because I was really tired. About, there's pawns and there's knights and there's bishops and it's just like chess pieces. And then, of course, there's always one that's always at the top ruling everything. And then there's, of course, someone way above everyone else. But trust me, sometimes you just gotta not care about that and just focus on your own happiness. Because it's like I said before, if you try to change that, they're just gonna find a way to replace it. So it's just a system that cannot be changed. But when it comes to individual companies and corporations and whatnot, it can change. It's a revolving door. When John Cena finally retires, I'm telling you, Roman Reigns is not going to be able to constantly keep holding that company. He's going to get tired. And then what's WWE going to do afterwards? Because they relied on John Cena, Randy Orton, and Roman Reigns for so long. Well, we got Seth Rollins. Okay, cool. But again, who else you got? You got to have multiple backup plans. It can't just be these two or three or four or five main guys. You know how like in the intro for like Raw and SmackDown, they always have these big major stars that make the most money. They're the ones that are shown. But then you have this other talent that's barely shown and they're just as good. I never understood that. I never understood why not everyone's face could be shown in some form or capacity. But then the moment they pass away, then they want to just throw a clip of their match in there just so they don't look terrible. So make sure everyone's given a chance, you know? Regardless of their controversy, make sure that they are given a chance. And if they screw up, it's on them. Don't talk to me about America saying land of the free, home of the brave, and all this opportunity when you are literally putting in blockades to purposely stop people from even having a chance. Don't don't do that. Don't be like that. Those in the LGBTQ, those like the one thing that I make sure of in the restaurant place that there's representation. You know, and I understand that for some people it's confusing, but if someone, let's just say in the role play, comes out as gay, lesbian, whatnot, we're still gonna respect that. All right. Like one of the rules that state is respect. Everyone else respect you and respect the environment. In other words, if someone's there and they are of a different sexuality, you're still gonna respect them. And if they want to come out and say that in their promo, let them. We're not gonna change it or anything. Unless it's disrespectful, then yeah, we're gonna change it. And then it's funny because we learned throughout all these years certain wrestlers were gay, certain wrestlers were trans, certain wrestlers were this, but they just weren't allowed to say it on live television. And I think that's so sad. Why can't we just get along with one another, honestly? If I said it once, I'll say it again. I have no issues with lesbians. I only have issues with them when they start being disrespectful to men. I'm cool with them. I'm cool with them. I have no quarrel with them. I make peace with anybody that I can come across. But they don't want to make peace with me, then I gotta stand my ground. That's just where I'm at. That's why when people say stuff like, "Oh, I like you" and all that stuff, I put them to the test. But anyway, let's get back on topic. The third thing that I never understood about pro wrestling, like in all honesty, there's nothing at stake anymore. The storylines are good, but there's nothing at stake. Jey Uso is finally a major, you know, champion. What's at stake? Nothing. Gunther lost. It did nothing for him. You know what I mean? So he literally has to build. It's like a storyline on top of a storyline on top of a storyline on top of a storyline, but there's nothing at stake. It doesn't have to be anything huge like, oh, your career has to be on the line. But one has to ask that one question. Look at how wrestling was back then. How there was always something at stake. Oh, if you lose, then you're gonna have to wear a chicken suit, or if you lose, um, you know, you're gonna lose fans. Like, what's at stake here? If Kurt Angle beat Booker T, then something would have happened to Charmel. You know what I mean? Like, there was always something at stake, and it made us root and cheer for someone. What was at stake for the main event against Cody Rhodes and John Cena? Nothing. There was nothing at stake. Was there? You know what I mean? It's like, wait. What was at stake? Nothing. There was nothing at stake. I think the only thing that's at stake is that, oh, there's a chance that you can get injured like Logan Paul, and I'm glad that he's doing better. What's at stake? Honestly, nothing. And because that there's no stakes, we're just cheering for these wrestlers, saying, "Oh, they did a great job. There's a great match," but there's nothing. Where's the careers being on the line? Where's the I quit matches? Where's the, oh man, someone's could end up in a hospital. Where's the IRL beef from like years ago that's being brought back? There's nothing at stake. Let me give you a good example of like the storylines when it comes to the wrestling role play. During the time when I was doing that stuff with Xander and whatnot, what was at stake? My health, because I was constantly being injured. So the storyline was, there was prejudice against the ponies. Secret prejudice against the ponies and the furries. It was a good storyline. You had this corrupt boss, and he was feeling that he could do things that he wanted to do. And then you got me, who's constantly just being accused and trying to figure out what's going on with this mafia and trying to stop Penta. There was a lot at stake. Families could have been torn. Friendships could have been destroyed. Mental health. It was something that made the storyline, you know, enticing because there was IRL situations being involved. Know what I mean? Remember the Edge and Matt Hardy feud? That's one of my all-time favorite feuds because it was based off of IRL events. Edge and Matt Hardy, they had they fell in love with Lita, and they let that love cycle get the best of them. Good angle, really good angle. It was beautiful. I loved it. The Edge and Lita angle was beautiful. I loved it. Love it, love it, love it. Thought it was amazing. I would do anything just for Edge and Matt Hardy just to have one more match, just for the heck of it. And they have Lita, be like the special guest ref or just be right there, decide. And then afterwards they just all hug it out. I think that'll be pretty cool. With CM Punk when he goes out there and he fights, his legacy's at stake. You know, Sting. Sting. He goes under. There's always something at stake for him. And that's how people need to approach life sometimes when they do certain things. Like, what is at stake? That question, when you ask that, what's at stake here? What's the point of the story? When Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn constantly wrestle each other, it's amazing. It's awesome. I love it. But there wasn't really fully nothing at stake until it wasn't, an unsanctioned match. And of course, these wrestlers were injured, and due to the advancement of technology, they pretty much were able to, be put on medication and the surgery, was able to, heal their bodies a lot faster than usual. So there was definitely something at stake there. But ask that question, like, well, what now? So, in my opinion, stories need to be ongoing, but not too long. There needs to be a beginning, middle, and end. Here's the storyline between these characters. Here is your start date. Here's your end date. If you want to continue, then here is the day that you can start it up again. Certain wrestlers understand this. Some wrestlers, when they have their gimmicks, their purpose is to send a message. To some, it's to be champion. For others, it's to show how strong they are. But what's at stake? It's kind of like when you go inside of a restaurant. What's at stake? What's at stake is that you could get food poisoning. So you take a risk eating at a restaurant at a certain time. What's at stake when you don't brush your teeth a lot? Cavities, gingivitis. What's at stake if you date this person that obviously had just went through a breakup? You can have your heart broken. Your life has to have stakes. It's what makes it interesting. It's what makes it entertaining. And what brings about the lessons. Back then, there was a lot at stake. Families, friendships. Not just championships. That's boring. Oh, the championship's on the line. The championship's on the line. Boring. Oh my goodness, who's going to be the next champion? Who's going to be the next champion? Give it to indie companies. They at least make their storylines so to the point where something's at stake. But even then, they kind of falter in that regard. Add something to the table. If you lose, oh, you can no longer be a tag team anymore. Remember those angles? If you lose, you gotta take your mask off. Especially if you're a luchador. Remember those high stake matches? Or it could be something as goofy as if you lose, you have to kiss my feet. Okay, it doesn't have to be that extreme, but you get my point. There was something at stake that made matches interesting. All right, so let's talk about another issue that I have with pro wrestling these days when it comes to booking and just in general. And I can definitely say with a shadow of a doubt, this is one of my biggest pet peeves, right? One of the biggest issues that I have, and I have to address this, and I gotta make sure that I'm somewhere else sitting down when I say this. Too many people are involved in a storyline. Storylines need to only focus on one, two, or three people. Never four, never five. That's it. The only time a storyline should focus on four people is if there's going to be an upcoming fatal four-way match or if it's like a tag match coming up. But sometimes storylines just need to focus on two people. One, two. That's it. One thing that I loved about this angle in NXT where Trick Williams tried to, come out, Obafemi talking about, oh no, I want another match. We're gonna run that back. Joe Henry comes out, and both Obafemi and Joe Henry beat down Trick Williams and toss him to the side, saying, "You had your multiple chances. It's my turn." Focusing on two people. I'm like, thank you. We love Trick Williams, but I agree. I agree. Focus on two and three people in the storyline. Just try it. No more of this 4, 5 people and all. No. Give us what WWE has given us. You know. Or what New Japan Pro Wrestling has given us. I'm speaking to indie companies. The CM Punk and Cena. You know. Randy Orton, Triple H. Bret Hitman Hart and Shawn Michaels. Hulk Hogan, Macho Man Randy Savage. There are certain storylines that have to last for a year. Because these are wrestlers that have actual IRL beef with one another. And that's good storytelling. And you let those wrestlers handle that. Whatever it is they want to do, you let them do as long as they don't end up killing one another. So, I just want people to understand that is very important. And the last and final thing that always bugs me when it comes to pro wrestling is that the main events don't feel special anymore. Only in pay-per-views. Because it goes back to my other reason. Certain wrestlers are just not given a chance to shine. They just focus on the same old wrestlers, and it makes the product stale. You don't have to constantly give us a steel cage match or, you know, a last man standing match. But you have to make these main events mean something or at least build up a story, or it's just pointless. For example, it wouldn't make any sense if, there's a steel cage match every main event. At some point, you got to ask yourself, what stipulation can we add to this main event that could either build up for a story? And enough of the doorway matches. That's a bonus one. Stop with the doorway matches. I understand that not everything needs to be a story, but the doorway matches have to stop. Those doorway matches could lead up to potential short stories for feuds that could be used for a pay-per-view. And I'm going to say this right now. Jobbers matter. Because those jobbers turn into big stars one day. Or they turn to mid-carders. Stop treating jobbers like they're nothing and that they don't serve a purpose. And stop just having certain jobbers just constantly job to, certain wrestlers. Give us what we got with El Penta and Chad Gable. Chad Gable's not a jobber. That was a legit wrestler that literally made El Penta work. Same with Ray Phoenix. Ray Phoenix was given, what was it, an NXT opponent? That was awesome. And the matches were good. The only time jobbers are acceptable is with big dudes. But even I have to say this, and this is a pet peeve of mine. Why can't big wrestlers be challenged by other former big wrestlers? Like, shoot, a Mark Henry going up against an Oba Femi, for the debut match. That would have been awesome. Like, holy crap, like, make the debut matches feel big. Like, holy crap, we could take this guy seriously. He just beat someone that was well known. Get wrestlers that actually will give these guys or gals a fight. Not just squash matches. Squash matches should rarely be used. So if you got a big guy debuting, pit him up against someone that is well known in the indies, but not too well known. That's like coming up, but that can give this person a fight that won't make them look too bad. Enough of these, oh, here's a new guy and he squashed this person who's obviously known in a wrestling corporation, but you treat him like such a joke that we would never have known that was the son of a legend. That has to stop. If you're going to debut somebody, do it right. Make us see that this person is actually strong. Big guys should be picking up huge guys and making us saying, holy crap, this guy is no joke. Because any big dude, like, almost could just pick up someone that's 100-pounder and just toss it to the side, no problem. But imagine if a big guy, right, was able to pick up someone like, I don't know, whatever other big guy that you can name up. Someone that's big, but, like, you don't know them, but they're from the indies, but they have won a few matches. Like, I'll give you a good example. When Hammerstone debuted, right? That guy was a monster. Just fighting and everything. Yeah, he lost, but he wowed everyone. Like, holy crud, this guy's awesome. I want to see more of him. You gotta let these jobbers have a little bit of, fight in them. Like show a little bit of fear, but have a little bit of fight in them. Like let this guy come and actually start wailing on these people. Sorry, not wailing on people, but wailing on that wrestler. Just for them to be shocked that their moves are not working. Like, what is going on here? Most debut matches are terrible. They make the new wrestler look good, but for me, I never really liked them. You know what I mean? Because I always wonder, like, why are these debut matches so short? Now, I get it. If it's like someone that's a big, intimidating wrestler, understandable. Yeah. But if it's like someone that's like, mid range, weight and whatnot, why not give us better matches? Like when I was checking out the Jack Swagger debut match, I was like, they could have given him a better opponent. Someone that could have challenged him a bit. I don't know. But WWE is getting better. And TNA and, a lot of these indie promotions, they get that right. They always, give these wrestlers someone that, challenges. It's funny how they get it right, but these. But WWE is the only one that's like, oh, we got to do the goofy thing, had the big wrestler. Like, in certain cases, fine, whatever, but don't do that all the time. Give us like we got with El Penta and Ray Phoenix, because those were amazing debut matches. I was like, holy crud, like this was close. Because that shows us, wait a minute, there's a lot more to these wrestlers than is desired. Now, unless that wrestler is built to be like some monster, like kind of like with, the late great Bray Wyatt and whatnot, then yeah, throw some jobber in there and have them like be scared and like actually scared and drop that guy or gal if it's a woman, whatever. But enough of that, man. Enough of these just squash matches, Like listen. Squash matches are fine, but they shouldn't be abused. They should only be used like if a wrestler is like really like angry and they just need someone to like take their frustrations out on, just to send a message. It should be used for comedic purposes, or it should be used to build like this big intimidating character. So if they're like big and intimidating, then use it. So like for example, an MMA fighter going up against an actual pro wrestler, yeah, they should squash them in like less than 2 minutes. Because they're actual professional fighters, so it makes sense. But, I was gonna say something about the entrances, but I will say this: the entrances are kind of like a mixed bag. They are getting better throughout the years. Entrances are getting a lot better. I just wish that, and I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna say what I said when I was a kid. I wish they were a little bit more creative. They don't have to have pyros. They just need to have like that oomph, where it's like, whoa, that guy is awesome. Or that gal is awesome. And I could definitely say that they are getting better with that. So good on them. And thank goodness that the whole draft split nonsense is technically not a thing anymore. They're just moving wrestlers and just making announcements. I like the Raw versus SmackDown, draft. That was pretty cool, but it's like, it's a new generation. We don't need to do that anymore. We don't need to bring that back. It was fun, but we don't need to do that anymore. We don't need to have. I mean, if you want to do Raw versus SmackDown versus NXT or this faction versus this faction, that's fine. But only do that rare occasions. You don't have to do that every year because it gets boring. I think another issue that I have with pro wrestling is their pay per views. It's like the same thing. The only thing that should stay the same, in my opinion, is the Royal Rumble, SummerSlam, and WrestleMania. Those are the big three. You lose in any of those, then you gotta start over. Especially don't lose at WrestleMania. If you are someone that's coming up and you lose at WrestleMania, you gotta start all over. It's just that simple. I don't care what the script, what the script says or what the plan is. You gotta start all over. They won't tell you that, and it's hard. So, um, that's pretty much all I have to say and what I can think about. Pro wrestling is amazing. It's awesome. I still love it. It's you know fantastical. It's just it's a sight to behold. But it's definitely changed for better or worse. And if there's any indication of the fans constantly booing Cena, regardless of how happy they are for him, it just shows that pro wrestling still has a long way to go. They need to learn from that main event from night two on what happened. How is it that Cody was so loved and then he got booed? How is it that Cena is loved but he's booed still? They have to learn from this. Or they're going to make the same mistake again with Roman Reigns. They already built Roman Reigns. They don't need to have Roman Reigns be some goofy face. Let him still be, the tribal chief. Because that's one of his best characters next to the Shield. He's finally fully over. He doesn't need to be no heel. He needs, he can be, but he needs to still be his own character. And he needs to finally have that match with The Rock. Now that he's no longer champion, he needs to focus his attention on reforming his own bloodline and settling things with Solo Sikoa. And he needs to finally face The Rock and end things. No more excuses. WrestleMania 42, night 1 or night 2 main event needs to be Roman Reigns versus The Rock in a Bloodline Rules match. And Roman needs to win. Plain and simple. Now, if they have The Rock win, fine. But it has to make sense with the story. And we don't need Stone Cold, appearing in any more WrestleManias for a bit. At least not WrestleMania 42, because that botch should not have happened. The man was obviously intoxicated with beer. And that stunt that he pulled, oh my goodness. It's just embarrassing. That's why, WWE has to understand that they are, they're the top company, but they're no longer the top company anymore. They have competition. And they need to honor that competition, whether it's big or small. AEW, I know a lot of people saying it's not their competition, but once AEW gets it together, trust me, they will be their competition again. AEW's not going anywhere. And AEW exists for a reason. And WWE has to take ownership and responsibility for the fact that these wrestling companies exist because of them. Because of the fact that they have allowed so many of their egotistical wrestlers to take over. And they allow someone like Vince McMahon, Vince and Kenny McMahon, to ruin careers because of bad booking. I know that's a hard pill to swallow, but it's the truth. Yeah, he made a lot of great decisions, but he also made a lot of terrible decisions, especially in real life. And I'm telling you right now, and indie companies are learning this the hard way. WWE, you can't constantly keep bringing in old timers. You can't, it's just not going to work. There's only so many times that we're going to want to hear Stone Cold's theme song or The Rock's theme song or whatnot. Unless these guys are going to wrestle, we don't want to hear it. They're just here to get a cheap pop, and that's that. No, we're tired of that. You have to do better. You have to do better. You need to start introducing new wrestlers from the indies, from other promotions that can be built to be an unstoppable force that can challenge the likes of Braun Breaker and Seth Rollins. You gotta build stars because you can't keep relying on these top 10 wrestlers for the longest. One of them is already going to retire. Another one's going to retire. Heck, I think CM Punk's going to retire. AJ Styles going to retire because their bodies can't take it no more. At some point, Solo Sikoa is going to have to either turn face and be a tribal chief or something because they can't keep doing this forever. I know that they work their bodies, they're healthy, and the doctors, but realistically speaking, their bodies are going to break down. They're not going to be able to do those moves anymore. And even if they could, they're going to be moving a little bit slower than usual. It's going to be hard to tell, but wrestling for 20 years or 30 years feels like 50 years. Or twice that, because of the amount of pressure that those wrestlers are under, mentally, physically, and emotionally. And it just wears the body down. Again, there's exceptions to the rule. I know some wrestlers that can still go at it, like Sting, but even he said, after this, I got retired. It's great that we got to see him pretty much almost at 70 years old wrestling like that, like he was in his 30s. That was amazing. But even he knows, it's time. I got to stop. So that's just pretty much my issues that I have with pro wrestling. And gosh darn it, another issue, this is a bonus one that I have with pro wrestling. This is just with the fans. Y'all need to be a little bit more lenient and fair with your criticisms and your rants. Constantly keep saying that this wrestler sucks, this wrestler's terrible, but not giving like exact reasons as to why. It's not gonna help TNA or WWE or New Japan Pro Wrestling. And Dave Meltzer, your ratings aren't helping either. We love you, but your ratings aren't helping either. You need to be a little bit more critical of not just, WWE and AEW, but you need to be critical of New Japan Pro Wrestling. You need to push them to make better storylines. You need to push them to have more authentic characters. You need to push them to, if they need to improve on their promos, because they rely on you. Jim Cornette already does this. You need to step up to the plate. More of these wrestling critics need to come to a consensus and join together instead of trying to be divided. If they like the John Cena angle, cool. If they don't, they need to invite one another to podcasts. There's a thing called Discord, Invite them to a Discord call, and have civil conversations. Because talking about pro wrestling is fun, but when you keep saying, "Oh, this is terrible, Cody's terrible," like, no, he's not. He's improved. That man has improved. John Cena has improved. Roman Reigns has improved. Becky Lynch has improved. Mercedes Mons has improved. These wrestlers have improved, and you need to acknowledge that. They have characters. Because what's going to happen is people are going to stop wanting to listen to y'all. You have to be fair but critical. Oh, that's just part of my gimmick, man. That's just part of, I get that you have a gimmick for your little channel, but at the same time, you're gonna get older and you're gonna have to look back at that. And one of these days you're gonna come across these people that you talked about. Tyrone Magnus talked about this. He said that he met Roman Reigns. He said hi to him, and Roman Reigns had an attitude with him. Yeah. And Tyrone Magnus pretty much was like, I think he saw one of my videos. You you just don't know. You think that, oh well, I'm just a small YouTuber. They don't listen. Yeah, they do. So anyway, that's just my issues that I have with pro wrestling. It's getting better. It's always gonna be debatable, but all in all, I still enjoy it regardless. And and before I conclude this, let me just go ahead and just state this because I have to get this off my chest. As much as I enjoyed Raw and NXT, I'm gonna go back to the main question. What's at stake? Seth Rollins is now a Paul Heyman guy. Why? Gunther is attacking, the announcement team. Why? What's at stake? Now John Cena, he has a lot at stake. He's gonna be retiring. Randy Orton, there's a lot at stake for him as well. So I get it. So their rivalry being brought back makes sense because it's been going on for 10 years. That's awesome. Love it. I think even longer than that. So you got that. But everything else, it's just kind of like, well, what's at stake? Oh, Kairi Sane's going to be going up against this NXT women's wrestler. What's at stake? The titles. No, what else is at stake? If they can answer that question, then people will be more invested and care about the story. You can say, oh, this person should be pushed, this person, but you have to focus more on what builds the story. Otherwise, it's just a throwaway story, and then you're not going to remember it. Jey Uso and the Gunther storyline makes sense because it's been going on for a while. So Jey Uso's just chilling, celebrating, resting his body. That's understandable. That's understandable. That man's been wrestling for over 10 years. He deserves to have a break and be champion. He deserves that. So, but like I said, what's at stake here? Tell me why I should care about Gunther getting angry. Tell me why I should care about Naomi wanting to fight Jade Cargill. Tell me why I should care about Io Sky being champion. Like, what's at stake here? Tell me why I should care. Tell me through the storytelling. Tell me through your promos. Get me invested. That's why a lot of people are not watching WWE as much anymore. Or they just watch the highlights. Because there's nothing to be invested in. The matches are good. The characters are there. But there's nothing being told. There's no story being told. So without that, there's no investment. See, when it comes to actual real life sports, there's a lot at stake. Someone's health could be at risk. Championships, legacies, egos versus egos. There's a lot at stake with sports. Someone could be proven a point because some sports star talk trash about someone. Always something at stake. Certain naysayers say, oh, this new guy or this new gal ain't going to do nothing. Oh, this women basketball player ain't going to, they ain't nothing. And then, she has to, prove to them that, yeah, I can. Lots at stake. Oh, I think that person needs to lose weight, you know? Self-esteem's at stake. Like there's always something at stake with sports. But what's at stake with wrestling when it's scripted? Make me care again. Don't just make me just say, "Oh man, that was a great match and that was a good promo." And okay, I'll see y'all next Monday. No. What's at stake? There's always that something at stake with tag team based storylines. It could be a friendship at stake or they're going to break up. And it could be something even deeper. You know, family can get involved. Like there's so much that creative can do besides, oh, someone got beat down. Oh, someone, you know, um, pretty much crossed the line. Oh, there's an interference. Make it make sense. The one thing that I always tell my broski, even during these wrestling role plays, and it's not just about wrestling role plays, it's just in general. The number one rule when it comes to storytelling, it just indefinitely make it make sense to the story. You want to know why a lot of these LGBTQ, lesbian, gay based movies and stuff barely do well at the box office? Because they are so focused on trying to spread a message instead of telling a story, building characters that make sense. Make me care for this couple. Why does she like this woman? What caused this? What's different from this couple than from the other 100+ couples we saw that have been shoved down our throats? It's like with anything. It's just like when it comes to an artist. I tell this with any artist, even with well-known artists. I say, what's so different about your art than the person's art that's they only charging like $10? You're charging me 1,000. They're charging me 10. What's so special about your art besides its detail? You got to challenge people like that. It's the same thing with me with my streaming. Like, what's so different about my streams that people should tune in versus this person who has more viewers than me? And that's why there's so many wrestlers and people still don't know who they are. Oh, that's that one Japanese wrestler. Okay, but you expect me to do 25 minutes of research for each wrestler just to know who they are? Tell me who you are. Tell me why I should care. That's why people love MJF. Because he gets it. That's why people love CM Punk. That's why people love, certain wrestlers because they get it. When you hear Bobby Lashley, you don't have to look him up. You already know. Wow, look at that guy. MVP. You ain't got to look him up. Yeah, I know who he is. Shelton Benjamin. Whew. Hurt Business. Okay. All right. All right. Samoa Joe. Joe. Guy shows you who he is in the ring. AJ Styles, the phenomenal one. The face of TNA. That's why building characters is so important. My characters, my character in the role play went through a lot of, changes. He went through, just being, you know, anti-hero, someone that was, hardcore knight seeking redemption, then became corrupt, then became the Etlian, became somewhat of a heel, but also an anti-hero. And then went from, going through a face and vigilante, segment after seeing, his broski. See what I mean? Building up a character. Slowly, but surely. Bringing up moments that happen within my story. I'm telling a story. And then you tell a story when you wrestle. You tell a story when you are fighting. You tell a story when you have to talk trash to someone. Why do you think when people hear certain names in wrestling like RVD, Sabu, Tommy Dreamer, people know who they are because they told the story. The Dudley Boys, the Hardy Boys, Edge, Christian. And certain wrestlers are so, talented that they can pretty much work with any character. And it still works. Because they still stay true to their original character. So that's just one of the issues that I've always had with pro wrestling. And is it going to change? I highly doubt it. But will it change over time? Yes. Slowly but surely. So that's all I got to say. Y'all take care. Hydrate, eat, and love yourself more. And continue the reinvention process. And we shall see what's going to happen as we count down to John Cena's retirement. And who knows what else is going to happen during the rest of this year outside of wrestling. Oh, okay, I'm back. So, in conclusion to everything that I was saying, if more wrestlers are given opportunities, then there'll be less and less rants on this type of topic. Not just rants, not just Vince, but also just in-depth discussions. Also, make sure you check out Jim Cornette because he knows what he's talking about. All right, I'll see you all on the next stream, which will be in a few moments.